Did you know that after Zelda 2, but before the CDI games, there was actually another Zelda released for this thing called the Super Nintendo? What? And no, I don't mean BS Zelda or Link's Awakening inside a Super Game Boy or other Zelda games you can play on the Super Nintendo. You might not believe me, but it's called Triforce of the Gods in Japan. And A Link to the Past everywhere else. I know, I'm shocked too. Because this game is so boring and forgettable, my mind often skips over it. Alright, I'm Josh, and obviously, inspired by any Austin calling Grand Theft Auto 3 forgotten, I hear basically two opinions about this game. One, that it's the best thing ever, greatest game ever made, top 10 all time, like when IGN is ranking the top 100 games of all time and this is in the top 5. Etc. Which, when I put my finger on the pulse, it's not so much what I hear anymore. Of course, those opinions exist, but I see more respect than I do admiration, or an acknowledgement of what it meant for the series moving forward. But A Link to the Past itself seems to have a bit of an identity crisis, because most of the elements it introduced were later aped by other Zeldas which did those concepts arguably better, and because the game itself isn't one with a strong personality, there aren't really any strong characters or events which stick with you, results in sort of a I respect you more than I like you type of mentality. I actually have an old video talking about this. Those are my two strawmen. I'm more in Camp B than in Camp A, but I do think that it's an interesting phenomenon, and something which Camp B forgets, including me, is that this is still an incredibly early Super Nintendo game from 1991. It's such a leap forward, generally, and punches so far above its weight that it actually could be compared to the series at large, much more so than the NES games. A Link to the Past is so advanced, it invented the template, they moved the ball forward so much from one game to the next, that it's easy to forget and take for granted how much of a jump this was. To put it another way, any action RPG after A Link to the Past looks a lot like A Link to the Past, but before it, none of them did. This was every bit the paradigm shift the first game was, and the leap from the NES titles to this was arguably the largest step Zelda would ever take. It's essential. If you had to play one Zelda, it might be this one. Actually, no, it's probably Ocarina of Time, or maybe even Breath of the Wild, as much as it sucks to say that at this point. But it's up there. It's one of the most representative Zelda games. But I don't know. A Link to the Past can't be that good. I mean, the cartridge isn't even gold anymore. What the heck were they thinking? Look at those Triforce pieces. Holy shit, they're in 3D! My Super Nintendo can do this? They're never gonna make graphics better than this. Wait a second, my hair is pink? Take it back, the graphics sucks, game is trash. As a kid, I actually used to debate this. Like the pink was a part of his hat or something. But no, with age comes wisdom, that's your hair. It stays the same color even when your hat changes. And it wouldn't make sense for your Santa cap to have another rim below it. Strap in, because we're doing the Analyze Mario 1-1 thing. We're telepathically contacted by Zelda, but our uncle can hear it too, so he leaves first, telling us not to leave the house. Let's split the timeline here. Here we have Jason Awesome and Joe Dumbass. Jason Awesome is a gamer, so he sees a chest and pots to interact with, giving us the lantern and showing us we can pick stuff up. Meanwhile, Joe Dumbass waits in his house for 30 seconds because our uncle told us not to go anywhere, so we should listen to him, right? He waited so long, in fact, that Zelda telepathically speaks to him again. So now he gets the hint and thinks it's about time to get his ass moving. Jason Awesome, lantern in hand, then walks north to where the castle is. Not able to walk through the main entrance, finds this inconspicuous bush, lifts it up, just like the pots in his house, to find his way into the castle. The whole thing from beginning to end took about 20 seconds. Meanwhile, Joe Dumbass walks in the complete wrong direction where he meets some friendly guards who prevent us from going too far out of the way, one of which tells us to use our map by pressing X. Doing that shows where we are, and a red X where we are supposed to be. So following the map, we go north, only, oh no, there's some grass blocking our path. And at this point, Joe Dumbass, needing to go in this direction, discovers that you can lift stuff up by pressing A. So he gets to the castle, only the guard says we can't go in? Oh no, again, what do we do? Maybe if he just walks into the gate long enough, it'll open up. But wait, yet another telepathic message from Zelda saying, I know there's a hidden path from outside the castle to the garden inside. Clues him in to the fact that this is not the right way. So he goes to the left, where another friendly guard is posted, which won't let us wander too far away, tells us that we can find valuable things inside treasure chests. And B is the sword button once we get it. Then, with all of this helpful knowledge, he lifts every single bush until, voila! Joe Dumbass finds the hidden entrance. Jason Awesome, by this point, is already finishing the game by glitching into the wall to teleport straight into the room with the Triforce, but Dumbass finally made it inside of the castle. Finding our old-ass uncle. He's so old, the fall down here broke his leg or something. Which of course that was gonna happen. He's got a freaking mustache. This stupid adult thinks he can adventure? Heck no. This is kids stuff. Get out of the way, old man. Wait, Zelda is our what? I don't know. Point is, we have the sword now, and opening up the chest in the next room, which we now notice because it's on a pedestal and the guard outside alerted us to look for treasure chests, gives us the lantern we missed at home, complete with a thing to light up right next to it if he's feeling especially saucy. Alright, I think this gimmick has gone on long enough, but you get the point. This opening is awesome because at one point in time, all of us were a lot more like Joe Dumbass than Jason Awesome. Inside, the castle feels large and grandiose, but it really isn't if you're going strictly by layout because you're limited to where you can actually go, a whole section is quarantined off, and both branching paths lead to the same place. It teaches you everything you'd ever need to know about combat by killing real-life human beings. You never get to do that in the NES games. Maybe the Iron Knuckles, but I think those are just supposed to be walking suits of armor. There's also the concept of verticality, both within the same screen and going up different levels to different floors. Everything the game is about is introduced here. And it doesn't feel stupid, it doesn't feel hand-holdy. It lets people who know what they are doing rush to the end to get this over with, and ones who aren't are sucked into this dramatic castle rush. We're saving a princess. This is normally what we do at the end of the game, not the beginning. The first time I ever played this was on the Game Boy Advance, and I thought this was the end. Hilariously short game, but frick, this ball and chain guy guarding Zelda is kicking my ass. I can't beat him, so he's gotta be the final boss. Short game, but he's freaking impossible. Bet you can just throw pots at him. Or hit him with the boomerang so he can't move. This is the first enemy where you need to be resourceful to take him out easily. If you're familiar with the mechanics of the game, he's real easy. As I said, you could just throw a pot at him. But if you only know about the sword and you're a stupid little kid, he can be kinda tough. Then we beat him, get the key. Oh man, I wasn't trying to talk to you, I wanted the treasure! Zelda here is an actual character. You escort her out, you can walk up, you can talk to her, and she says things. And she's perfectly safe here, because nobody except the good guys ever go to church. The only safer place in the whole world would be the library. This is the first Zelda game with a plot. I don't mean that in a disparaging way to the NES titles, I mean it literally. It's the first one with a sequence of events which move the story forward inside of the game itself, as opposed to being prolonged third acts and conclusions to stories set up in the manual or in an opening text crawl. There's plenty of that too, but there's also moments with intent, drama, suspense, surprise. They're light, but they are there. We're dropped into the middle as opposed to the end of a story. We rescue Zelda, obtain 3 things, obtain another legendary thing, which everyone has been talking about the whole time, storm our old stomping grounds, then a status quo change, where we collect 7 more things and finish the game. Those are more or less the same beats Zelda games would become known for in the future. Along the way, our goal shifts. Defeat Aghanim, then rescue the maidens he sacrificed to obtain the Triforce. Then, ruh-roh Raggy, it was actually Ganon the whole time. A twist. Not a particularly inspired one, but it's here. Rescuing Zelda is dramatic, and because of these events which transpire in the first minutes of the game, the world has changed. You are no longer a kid getting friendly advice from the guards. Now they want to fucking kill you for kidnapping Zelda. Which is technically true. As a kid, these signs used to legitimately piss me off, like, nuh-uh, I'm not a criminal. but they're not lying. We did break in and then escort a now missing princess out of the castle. Then after she's stolen back and the guards have less of a reason to look for you, ironically they're more aggressive. Tougher ones filter in, and now they're even patrolling the village. Small change, but I remember that freaking me out. I can't even hear the happy town music anymore. It's as if nowhere is safe. Speaking of music, the Zelda theme is back. Woohoo! Reusing it here is what cements it as the Zelda theme as opposed to just something that's used in the first game. But they don't let you hear it. Not the first time you go in the overworld. They withhold until after you rescue Zelda, get through the tutorial. Now we're fucking playing Zelda. We're playing Super Zelda, actually, because that's what this is. It's bird's eye again, so it's like the first game, but it's improved in pretty much every way. You notice it just moving around. You're no longer locked to a grid. Swinging your sword is no longer a stab just out in front of you. Now it's more of a swipe. There's the spin attack, which makes us even more maneuverable, because we face in the same direction while holding it. You can run now, but you have to unlock that. It's an advanced maneuver. I guess they thought that was too much to give the player right off the bat. You get it really early, though. With the Pegasus Boo, shoes? Not boots? What? My whole life has been a lie. Enemies in Zelda 1 just walk back and forth. They don't have AI. They're not thinking. Zelda 2, they're a little better, but here, they actually have tendencies, and they react to your presence. This soldier just heard me run into the wall, and now he knows I'm here. It's just fun to move around in A Link to the Past. Mine and everyone else's favorite is mowing the lawn, which was invented here. NPCs even bring this up. They knew it was cool. They knew it was fun to just walk around town, cutting everyone's grass. That's why it spawns back so quickly, so you can do it again, and again, and again. Why would anyone do drugs when you could just mow a lawn? It's a way to grind for resources. They throw fairies in here, which are valuable, especially after you get the bug net. Another major difference between this and the first game is the screens are now huge, and they scroll. Like Link's movement, you're no longer locked to a grid. This is the caveat where it can't use the design language where there's only one secret per screen, but secrets in general have changed a lot since the first game too. It feels more free, it feels more open. No longer are secrets just pushing blocks or bombing walls or burning bushes. You can still do those things, but they hide them in much more clever ways as well. Under bushes, when you unlock the ability to travel between light and dark world, they play with that, but it's trash game design now because there are cracks on the walls telling you where to bomb. I mean, what's the point if they just tell you? Where's the fun? Be a man, throw bombs everywhere. There's a cool mechanic where if you tap your sword against the wall, normally it makes a little tink sound, but if there's a place you can bomb, it sounds hollow, which is a nice attention to detail, but it's not really useful. Some of the secrets are even just navigational, like wondering what's underneath this bridge, wondering what happens if you throw a buttload of rupees into this pool, playing with perspective like hiding the door to an interior space on the back of a building where you can't see it as the player. They could be anything, or at least it feels that way. And it's liberating. It makes the whole game feel a lot less rigid. Zelda 1 was a game where you could figure out some pretty relatively simple patterns and use that knowledge to make your way through the whole game. Whereas this, especially at the time, before there were over 30 years of games after this which aped its style and approach to design, it demands that you think more, as opposed to just experimenting. And that's another key difference. Zelda 1 is a lot of early adventure game, try this with that, bomb this here, bomb this there, throw candle fire here, throw candle fire there, where A Link to the Past requires your mind to be more open, that the solution might not be something you would even think is in the game. Something like throwing bombs. That could be the solution to a puzzle. Would you even think to do that once you lay a bomb down? You could, you can do it in this game. It's also visually striking too. For example, think about how few tiles make up the worlds in the NES games. They can look pretty samey, but A Link to the Past, every single screen is memorable. You could plop me down, take a screenshot of anywhere in the whole game, and I would be able to tell you with 99% accuracy exactly where that is. That's how memorable, I know, right? Each individual part is. There are landmarks everywhere, and it all feels unique from each other. I'm not even a big Link to the Past fan. I think this is the third time I've ever played through this game in my entire life, and my memory is terrible. You ask me any trivia question about any game I played more than 3 months ago, and I have no gosh darn idea. But A Link to the Past, it's still in there. At some point, we've crossed a line. We've gone from old and crusty to feels fresh and new. A 10-year-old now, which doesn't know anything about retro video games, give this to them and they would be fine. Hell, They might even like it. It passes the smell test in a way that the NES ones don't. A whiff of those and ugh, this is gross and old and blocky. But then you see A Link to the Past and you don't get that sense, which is why it's taken for granted so much. This talk extends to the characters, the text boxes, the NPCs too. It's no longer this weird, sparse, barren world with old men in caves saying vague things you need to really read between the lines to get anything out of. Now there are people and they tell you things and you listen to them and you follow a through line to get where you need to go. For example, right after the tutorial, they mark your map, tell you to look for the Elder of Kakariko Village to find the Master Sword, setting up this awesome sword you're gonna get later. But of course it's not that easy. The Elder's not there, so you talk to an old lady who tells you to talk to everyone in the village because somebody's gotta know where he is. This kid does, who marks your map over here. And this is different from the first game because that didn't even have a map. There's no waypoints or anything in the NES games, so it was just about stumbling onto where you need to go. It was about exploring and discovering. This is more, the world has already been explored and discovered and mapped out, but you still need to figure out how to get places, and it's not always obvious. In this case, it pretty much is, but it's also the first example of this. After talking to the old man and clearing the first dungeon, we now have 2 new waypoints, but it's a puzzle how to get to them. Figuring out how to get to where you need to go is the exploration in this game. It's different. Is that better or worse? Nintendo seemed to think it was better because that was the template they would use going forward. It's definitely a lot less obtuse. Gives you something to work towards instead of just wandering. Feels like you have a goal, because you do now. They make you work for your old men here. They don't just give them to you in the first screen of the game. And once he's here, he never leaves you alone either. He's telepathically talking to you the entire game. That's another thing. A Link to the Past is so much more talkative than your average game at the time, but it's still not obnoxious about it, especially comparing it to what would come later. It's quaintly understated. You're never stopped by an owl, you're never mashing the button through dialogue, though I spun the needle on the Game Boy Advance version while writing this, and in that one, ooh boy, they introduced a lot of mashing through dialogue, at least in the beginning. But the original's clean, except for the maidens. Fuck the maidens, they suck. I fall asleep every time I get to one of them. And I find this admirable. It's wordy with restraint. It's still laser focused even with these NPCs on the main task. Side quests exist, NPCs exist, but it doesn't feel like you're putting your adventure on pause to deal with their nonsense. Is the telepathy cheap? Yes. Most plot elements or lore elements, most things that the game wants to get across about the world and the story are revealed in these dumps by the maidens or through telepathy. That's how we find out Zelda was kidnapped, and the game does use it as a crutch, but when I think of the alternative where there would be some awkward cutscene maybe when you walk by the cathedral again, where you see Zelda going, help me, Link. I don't know. Maybe this was the right solution, or maybe you just find out through NPCs, or maybe they don't tell you at all and it's just up for you to discover by going back there. Like, hey, now I have the Master Sword, so your natural inclination is to go back to the sanctuary to find out what to do next. Then when you get there, the guy is dying and he tells you Zelda was kidnapped. Maybe they didn't need this dialogue to alert you to that fact, but they have established that Zelda and Link have a telepathic connection, so I don't know, I guess it works. Leads to an awesome emotional moment though. You get this new awesome sword, which doesn't refill your health by the way, what the frick game. Give me full hearts so I can see the sword beam immediately. And going back to the castle where the game started, but this time you have access to the upper floors, and just this big goofy combat gauntlet. It's so satisfying just hammering down enemies with your new awesome sword. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the game. You feel heroic doing this. That's what I'm talking about with emotional moments existing in this game in a way that it just couldn't in the NES ones. Like, yeah, I got pissed off that they hid the raft behind the Triforce piece in that one dungeon in the second quest, and I got pissed off when the Dark Nuts killed me. But that's really the only emotion I'm feeling. Through A Link to the Past's world, they're able to set up circumstances that make you feel things. And that's an accomplishment that's hard to do. Especially back in 1991? You kidding me? The light world is mostly open as far as navigation goes. When the game starts, you can't swim yet. You can't go to Death Mountain until you get the glove that lets you lift rocks. But that's it as far as gatekeeps go. So even with waypoints, there's still this Zelda 1 spirit of being plopped into a place with true freedom to go wherever, do whatever, see the sights. It's a dense game. There's lots of miscellaneous things to see. Makes sense, this was peacetime, so the world should be easy to get around in. Then to contrast, the Dark World is fractured. It's almost as if it's not meant for human traversal. It's laid out more Metroid-styled, where starting out there's only access to a small portion, then as we obtain items by clearing dungeons, those serve as keys to the rest. If you remember, that was Zelda 2's approach as well. There's more of a delayed gratification and reaction thing going on here too. Since we're already familiar with the Light World, I remember being really intrigued by what different locations would transform into. I really wanted to know what they all looked like, but holding off on most of the world from the onset meant that I couldn't see it right away. It kept me curious, and you might be thinking that, hey, this is a pretty short game. My playthrough gaining all of the heart pieces was only 12 hours 55, so the intrigue couldn't have lasted long, but remember, put this in stupid kid logic. I never saw past the Palace of Darkness back then, the first Dark World dungeon. That place had me hard stuck, and it wasn't until many years later when I revisited it with the actual Super Nintendo version this time, not the Game Boy Advance, and was able to figure it out. I don't remember exactly why I couldn't find my way through here, but if I had to place money on it, it was probably bombing the bridge and then falling down the path it creates. I probably didn't have the gamer brain for that yet, but it lingered in my mind for years. I always wondered what the village, the church, the Master Sword Forest, my house, what were they like in the Dark World? So finally walking into my house, and guess what, buddy? It ain't your house no more. Now Trumpy from Mystery Science Theater moved in and started selling bombs. The village is in ruins, the forest is a dungeon now. It's all unnerving, like it's a twisted reality. Familiar enough to be recognizable, yet every difference is for the worse. Except for maybe the pyramid, that's pretty cool. Let's talk dungeons. I believe this is the first game they're ever referred to as dungeons. In the manual, they're not levels, they're not palaces, they're officially dungeons now. The way they're designed might be the true revolution of this game. They're not slapdash anymore. Every one of them were crafted with intent, consideration of the player's actions, and a sense of flow. They're not all winners, admittedly, but they're all swings. These dungeons each try something wild. There's a clear, visible thesis to all of them, which again, referring back to the NES games, isn't just, okay, this one's the letter Z, this one's an eagle, and let's just go in order. First dungeon, really simple, most of it is laid out on one floor, and gives more of the illusion of choice, while progression is accomplished in a straight line. Standout moments when you can see the big chest from the upper balcony before you can get close to it, building that intrigue, then working our way down, getting to the chest. What the frick? We need something called a big key, so we keep following the path until we get the big key, yeah! Then the dungeon smartly loops back in on itself with these one-way blocks, and boom! Open the chest to get the bow. That's storytelling just with design. Build, suspense, payoff, all by just showing us this giant chest early. Then they introduce enemies which can only be killed with arrows. Not the boss fight though. These statues are severely weak to arrows, yet it's not the only way of killing them. A Link to the Past is much nicer to the player than the NES games. There's no lives system like in 2, and they never fuck you like in 1. If this were Zelda 1, these big dumb statues would only be harmed by arrows, and if you ran out, you would be SOL. And you also wouldn't find the bow and arrow in the same area you need to use it, you would find it somewhere else. Then Dungeon 2 is the exact freaking opposite. It actually begins before we even enter because we have to solve a puzzle just to get in. Use the book from the library to read the text, which we earn by knocking it off the shelf with our new dash ability. Once inside, it's not the straight tour through a bunch of rooms like Dungeon 1. In fact, you don't even need to go into most of them. This time, there is a singular locked door and a gigantic entry area with a shitload of different rooms branching off. Most of these don't have anything of much use, maybe the map, maybe the compass, maybe literally nothing, and our objective is to find the one singular key so we can go through the only locked door. It's hidden in a plain room with nothing but 4 torches, an eye statue guy, and a telepathy block. Using the same mechanic we used to get in here, dashing into things, we get the only key which leads to the rest of the dungeon. And with that, we have now seen the complete opposite ends of the Zelda A Link to the Past design continuum. Dungeon 1 is as on rails and straightforward as it's ever gonna get, aside from I guess Hyrule Castle, while Dungeon 2 is as open-ended and explory as it'll ever be. After getting the big key though, wait, there's more! You actually have to leave and then re-enter through a different entrance around the back. That's pretty crazy and experimental, especially this early in the game. Then we get to the fucking tower. I love this place. And it starts, again, before we even gain entrance. From the beginning of the game, whenever you look at the map, this place was a standout. You see a giant tower on top of Death Mountain, and you know some serious shit has to go down there. So there's a natural buildup long before we're able to step foot on this mountain, which is a bit of a mini dungeon in and of itself too, complete with an escort quest where this old man adds a bit of personality to the story because one of his granddaughters were one of the girls sacrificed. Again, we gotta solve a puzzle to enter, but it's a good one. We're given our first taste of the dark world where we turn into a rabbit. The solution is we're supposed to notice these giant sets of tits on the ground are giant implants in the real world, and to use our magic mirror to travel between worlds on top of them. It's smart. As a rabbit, we can't do anything except talk to these guys and use the mirror, and we're also locked in and confined to a relatively small space. It basically traps us until we figure out what we're supposed to do, and they even incentivize it and make it stand out a little more by placing a piece of heart up here. The first two dungeons, while polar opposites, mostly take place within a singular sprawling floor. There's not much use of verticality, the other pillar, haha, of this game's dungeon design philosophy. This dungeon presents the idea that these areas should be treated as third-dimensional beings. There are 6 floors, each of them fit within the same physical footprint, as in they're all narrow and the same size like an actual tower would be. Most of the enemies are these annoying fucks which bounce you around. There's pits scattered throughout which you can change the location of by stepping on tiles, and if you're a stupid kid, more likely than not you're going to accidentally get knocked into one of these before you purposefully jump in. And when that happens, you don't die. You don't even lose health. You fall down to the floor below and continue your adventure, which is freaking mind-blowing. Hello? Then in order to get the Moon Pearl, which allows us to not bunnyify in the dark world, we need to think with portals and drop down from the floor above onto the platform with the chests. This is a moment which I think is always taken for granted these days. To our skilled eyes, to people watching videos about Zelda games on the internet, this is obvious as fuck. But if you put this moment into one of those videos where they're forcing their girlfriends or wives or moms or whatever into it, then this becomes a 250 IQ 4D Hungry Hippos rocket science wizard magic level puzzle. The kind of thing that changes your brain chemistry. Then it concludes with one of the greatest boss fights in the Legend of Zelda history. It's a freaking sumo match. Link v Worm. It bounces us around, and if you get knocked off, you have to start the fight all over again. It's tense. We have to aim for the tail while simultaneously being aware of our position, trying not to get knocked off. Man, what a good-ass fight. Miyamoto deserved a raise for this one. Then Hyrule Castle Revisited. The new areas are just an excuse to use your Master Sword beam, which is badass, but there's not much to analyze. Then the Dark Palace, aka where I was forever stuck as a kid, contains elements of all 3 starting dungeons. There are sumo matches with these fucknuts, bits where we need to jump down holes voluntarily. Other parts are like a guided tour, but at its heart, it's also like Dungeon 2, where it's a large scavenger hunt for keys. They managed to make bombable walls tricky again by placing the place we're supposed to bomb at the bottom of the screen, which is the most hidden it can be if we're gonna put cracks in the walls, and a detail I passed over during this very playthrough, which had me stuck in here for a good half hour. Not literally this room, obviously I left and walked around some more, but I was stuck in this dungeon and this is why. There's a memorable central room with the sumo guys where if you know about throwing bombs, it acts as a huge shortcut. Basically, there is a red/blue switch which lifts up the corresponding color's walls when they're triggered to that color, and the dungeon is designed in a way that this room acts as sort of a ball valve or a traffic light. Whichever position the switch is in is supposed to determine what direction you're able to enter the room in, but by throwing throwing a bomb at the switch and then passing over the open wall before it blows up allows you to not have to deal with that. It's clever. I certainly didn't know you could throw bombs at this point my first time playing through it, and the game hasn't made it obvious yet that this is a mechanic like it would be in later areas, so bravo, you're rewarded for thinking outside the box. Then after this place, the dark starts to open up a little more, and the next dungeon isn't so clear-cut. I know they're numbered on the map, but I don't have the order memorized, and I really don't care enough to look them up, so I'm just gonna go in the order I played them, which next was the Swamp Palace. Interesting puzzle where opening the floodgates in the light world fills the dark world dungeon with water, allowing you to actually access it. If you go in here without doing it, there's a ladder you can't reach right at the start. Not sure this logic makes complete sense, but whatever, I dig it. This place is a bit of a fucking mess and one of the weaker areas, but it still has some ideas. Controlling the flow of water with switches is a concept which would go on to be a series staple, and I love the puzzle where you walk through one of the snakes spitting water to reveal a hidden room. It's a classic Zelda 1 puzzle. If you use the map, it's obvious a room should be there, and there's also an opening on the opposite side of the room in this otherwise symmetrical area at that exact spot. It's well hinted at. This place also introduces what Link used to win the basketball game, and one of those bosses where you use that to grab parts of itself. That's a future Zelda boss stereotype. They'd reuse that all the freaking time. Next I did Thieves Town, the dungeon inside Kakariko's Dark World Village. Is opening this place up by lifting back and pulling instead of bombs or playing the ocarina or anything else you can think of bullshit? I don't know. Remember, the puzzle solutions can be anything in this game, so this place is fucking bizarre. Maybe the craziest swing A Link to the Past dungeons take. It begins with these 4 wide open multi-level rooms where the gimmick is the foreground upper layer hides half of the layout from the floor underneath, so you kind of have to play those parts blind and use context clues to worm your way around. On paper, I see what they were going for, but in execution, I think it's a bit, way too fucking easy and doesn't go anywhere near far enough to get this idea across. It's disjointed too, because the second half after getting the big key has nothing to do with this. There's a room where we're meant to figure out how to throw bombs because the floor in this part is obviously supposed to be blown up, but there is no way for us to physically get over there. Also, they give you a bunch of bombs in this room, which is another surefire sign. Blowing this up reveals a sunlight patch in an otherwise empty room below. I wonder what purpose this place could have. Then we're supposed to rescue this girl, but remember, this is the Thieves Town. In the light world, there's a gang of thieves which will go around trying to steal your rupees. Here, it's this hussy trying to... I don't know what she's trying to do. She tells you to escort her out, but then she just doesn't leave with you. I don't know what their endgame was. Also, it's interesting that you can't kill the thieves, but you can kill the castle soldiers. I guess the thieves are more good-hearted and Link just refuses to finish them off. I don't know. So this is a trickster. We're not supposed to rescue her. We're supposed to take her to the empty room. Then the sunlight turns her into the boss fight. Awesome moment, cool puzzle, but the rest of the area feels half-baked to me. Misery Mire, the one in the desert turned swamp. This one's okay. The idea is more centered around there only being one of these red/blue switches and having to chart your path through the dungeon around this one switch. Up until this point, puzzles involving these were relatively small scale. The switch was never more than a screen away from where you need to hit it, but here there's only one, so you need to know well ahead of time which direction, which color it needs to be. Sounds simple, but it ends up not being that way because this place is rather large. Then the boss is just a gang of giant eyeballs encased in some sort of goop. Just wanted to point out how ridiculous that is. Next was Skull Woods, one of the cooler ideas because of its multiple entry points. Remember that this was set up all the way back in dungeon number 2. It ends up being a bunch of smaller segmented areas that each have a specific goal. Like this string of areas exists to get the big key, these are here to get the fire rod, and then once you get the fire rod, you're supposed to navigate through the woods outside of the dungeon to where the Master Sword was to burn this big looking bug thing to gain access to the final part. It's a crazy swing. I'm not sure it comes together cohesively, but it's a cool gimmick nonetheless. Then I tackled the freaking ice dungeon. In future games, the water temple would be the polarizing one, but here it's the ice area. It's structured sort of like a tower and has some puzzles where you need to drop down holes voluntarily, which is weird. This doesn't really look like a tower from the outside, but you pay attention, we're actually descending down instead of going up. It's like an underground tower. Many of the rooms are combat focused on top of ice, which makes us slide around. There's a standout puzzle where we need to push a block down a hole to be able to use it on a switch we need to have constant pressure on, but if we have the cane, which allows us to create blocks with magic, it's easily bypassed that way. The item is an armor upgrade, which changes Link's appearance to dangerously off-model, not as cursed as his final form, but he looks a little off in blue. Then finally, our return to Death Mountain in the Dark World. Ironically, this is technically the first Dark World area we see, if you remember, but at that moment in time, as a rabbit, we're not able to do much. Turtle Rock is fucking bonkers, but it's also probably the worst designed area in the game. It's meant to be a turtle, sort of taking the Zelda 1 ideas of dungeons being shaped like various things more seriously. Like here, it's guts. This is its nervous system, I guess. This room is meant to be the head, I think. It's odd that the central item the entire place is built around is not found within the dungeon itself. You're supposed to find the cane out in the world. Up until this point, it has been a useful tool to bypass puzzles which required pushing blocks or statues onto switches, but it's finally required for the first time here. It creates these platforms we use to navigate around the central areas, branching out from the rest of the turtle. It's also the only dungeon with a hidden piece of heart aside from the full heart you get for beating the boss. By far the strangest dungeon. I don't enjoy waiting on the platforms, and the big gold shield makes Link look like a toddler, and the shield doesn't really do much of anything outside this area, so it's mostly pointless. Not a fan. Then Ganon's Tower is a fitting final area. Doesn't really introduce many new ideas except for maybe the invisible platforms, but it's a solid recap of every other puzzle in the game. We even get to rematch the worm. Sweet. It's the largest and most sprawling area. The item here makes Link look like a full Taiwanese bootleg. Seriously, this is the most cursed incarnation of Link. Looks like a glitch. Then we fight Aghanim/Ganon, and that's the game. The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past has perhaps the largest shadow over the entire series. It invented most of the canon mythos around the Triforce, the Golden Land, granting wishes, etc. Starting by getting 3 things, then getting 7 things, then finishing the game. There's a reason they would go on to reuse this template many more times, because it's satisfying and it worked. But it also sets some lame precedents, such as, oh, it was actually Ganon the whole time. You don't say. Now, I've played through a lot of Super Nintendo games, and the thing that stands out to me the most about A Link to the Past is its craftsmanship. It's on a whole other level. This is where Nintendo earns their stripes. It may not have the style or personality as others, but you gotta walk before you can run, and Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past sets a hell of an example. That's all I got about the game, but I have a few more things to say. I'm sure you heard recently that YouTube changed how they're counting views. People have been complaining about this all over the internet, and I'm gonna complain now too. I'm not one to bitch, but here I am about to bitch. The last 3 things I put out bombed horribly, and I notice in the analytics that the thing that everybody's talking about is that desktop views, specifically views people watching on a computer, have been way down. And for me, it's down less than half of what it was before, which puts the videos into the death spiral earlier. If you don't know, like when you put out a YouTube video, it measures like who's clicking, who's watching, and then as a result of like how it does early, that determines kind of the path that it goes down later on. A lot of the time, it's not 1-to-1. It's never been a 1-to-1 exact science, but that's generally how it works. And recent videos have been doing poorer at the start because half of my videos used to come from people watching on computer, and now it's in a distant 3rd place and it's less than 20%. So it's like more than half of the people that were watching on computer. The views just either they don't happen or YouTube isn't counting them. So it's putting them in that there. I don't really know what the solution to this is. I'm not one to say, oh, stop using adblock. Like I use adblock, whatever. It is what it is. Adblock is just a part of the internet because ads have become so invasive. Like, use adblock if you want to use adblock. But this is a time where a lot of smaller creators. I don't know if I'm a smaller creator, but like a medium-sized creator, whatever you want to classify me as, that they just need, you know, you need to be like a stronger fan more than ever if you enjoy people that you're watching, because for me it meant just like everything's just gotten worse since then. And I know for a lot of people that are, there's a much higher stakes, they have more views, there's a lot more stuff involved, there's like they've fucking have employees and shit. And just turning the faucet off by like half for a lot of these channels is, I don't know, it's been a big deal, and it sucks. It sucks. And yeah. Also, I'm wearing my Game Chasers shirt. I don't know if you heard, but Billy unfortunately died, and yeah, that's been really sad. I mean, I didn't know him. I don't want to pretend like I knew him or anything, but it was one of my favorite YouTube shows, and yeah, he was awesome. I met him one time. We talked one time, like a few months ago. Actually, it sucks. It's surreal. You see a guy a couple months ago, and then he's gone. Yeah, well, I don't know where I'm going with that. Just rest in peace, Billy. Just thoughts and prayers with your family, and I don't know. Anyway, yeah, never trust anyone who needs a haircut. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.